Part 37. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 363. Sitting on the dragon chair, the emperor wanted to laugh but felt annoyed. The solemn court turned into a street where they fought each other, but the emperor felt it was worth it to see the gaffes of those important officials. The emperor shook off the wild thoughts in his head. Now is not the time to think about this. Let's stop everyone from fighting each other first. The emperor felt that the people below were almost beaten, so he asked the guards to step forward and pull them away. The corners of Qin Xiang's eyes were beaten by someone, but they turned green. After being pulled away, he angrily pushed away the guards, knelt on the ground and shouted, "My lord, we have finally eased the situation with Jingguo. Don't let Qi Ziyuan and General Yuan be ruined because of it. Your Majesty, quickly order them to return." An old man with a white beard got up tremblingly, stepped forward and spat at him, and said, "It's all right if you are disloyal, unrighteous, or filial. How dare you pull the Holy One into the fold, Holy Lord, the country that Emperor Sejong worked so hard for, we throw it away. It is already unfilial. Now that there is an opportunity to take it back, how can you back down? I also ask the Holy Spirit to order the household department to fully support General Yuan and General Qi. Even if they can't take back all their homeland, they must take back Jingzhou Mansion, Henan Mansion, and Kaifeng Mansion. Government. Don't I want to take back my homeland, Qin Xiang shouted angrily, but if you take it back, you must be able to hold it. It angered the kingdom of Jin. They have hundreds of thousands of cavalry going south, let alone these three prefectures. The Yangtze River is coming. As soon as these words came out, several generals in the court turned pale with anger, and they came out to ask for a fight. Your Majesty, I invite you to fight, and go to assist General Yuan and General Qi. The white-bearded old man also laughed at Prime Minister Qin. As long as Prime Minister Qin doesn't hold back, General Yuan and General Qi can take back the lost land and hold it. My lord, just look at Hanshong Mansion. The borderline of Hanshong Mansion is long and irrelevant. Qi Ziyuan is not the same for 2 years. Qin Xiang sneered and said, Qi Ziyuan didn't defend the Hanshong Mansion, but the Jin soldiers didn't make any effort to take it back. He was lucky to meet the Jin kingdom and Xixia at war. Otherwise you can see if he can defend the Hanshong Mansion. Didn't Prime Minister Qin say that the kingdom of Jin has hundreds of thousands of cavalry? Why can't they spare tens of thousands to attack Hanshong Mansion? The official in charge of the battle laughed and said, the battles between the kingdom of Jin and Xixia dragged down their strength. Your Majesty, the border of Hanshong Mansion is long, and it is indeed difficult to defend, but it will be different after taking back Jingzhou Mansion. There are 4 passes in Jingzhou Mansion, especially Hang Pass, which is a natural danger that cannot be opened by one man. Take it back. Jingzhou Mansion, the south of Jingzhou Mansion can be guaranteed by 5 more points. The old man with white beard knelt down on the ground tremblingly again, and said in tears, please make an order from the Holy Spirit, so that General Qi can take back Jingzhou Mansion. What? Please issue an order to take back the Jingzhou Mansion. All the main fighters knelt down, and for a while, only half of them stood in the middle. The emperor breathed out in his heart. He was also inclined to take back Jingzhou Mansion, because the geographical conditions of Jingzhou Mansion are really good, unlike Hanshong Mansion, which is dispensable. As soon as the emperor was about to give an order, a general knelt down and said, Your Majesty, regardless of whether General Qi and General Yuan should take back the Jingzhou Mansion, it is against the holy will for them to send troops without orders. Please send someone to find out whether they are. If there is objection, then convict them. Qi Feng, who was kneeling below, felt his heart tighten. Seeing that the court hall was so quiet that he could hear it, the person who had clamored to send troops earlier did not respond at all. He gritted his teeth, closed his eyes, and knelt forward for 2 steps, said, Your Majesty, the subject is guilty. The white-bearded old man who was about to intercede with Qi Ziyuan and General Yuan shrank back after Qi Feng stood up, and almost fainted when he heard Qi Feng's next words. He thought that Qi Feng was here to defend his son, but he came out to plead guilty. The others were also taken aback, and the main battlers' eyes widened. They were quiet before because they didn't expect that someone would bring up such a crime. Rebellion is a big taboo, so before defending Qi Ziyuan and General Yuan, naturally, he had to think about it carefully, but who would have known that when Qi Fengji stood up, he did not plead guilty for his own son, but pleaded guilty? Even if you just cried and said how much your son admired the Holy One, how much he loved Dezhou, and how much he wanted to die for the Holy One, it's fine. It turned out to be a confession. The emperor also stared at Qi Feng for a while, then said "oh" lightly, and asked, "What's wrong with Qi Iking?" Qi Feng cried, "My lord, I didn't teach my son well." Qi Ziyuan left home to join his uncle when he was 13 years old. Not only did no one come back these years, but there were very few letters. I really don't know that he has committed such a crime thing. Fan Siwen's face was dark and he hesitated for a long time. After the white-bearded old man gave him a double stare, he gritted his teeth and stood up to interrupt Qi Feng's words. "My lord, although Ziyuan has little contact with his family, every year during the New Year and festivals, there is no connection between him and his family. All letters came back, and Uncle Chen often received letters of greeting from him. From the letters, he was always thinking about taking back his homeland on behalf of the Holy One and Dezhou. In addition, he was in the army, and this kind of thinking would only be stronger. He said that he was young and vigorous, and he couldn't defend the Golden Soldiers to instigate troops to take back the letter of the officials of Jingzhou Mansion. He said that he was a rebel. Xinyuan Mansion's hundreds of thousands of troops are coming day and night. Although he is young, he is not a brainless person, so he will definitely not do such a thing." Fan Siwen laid the foundation, and the white-bearded old man also came out immediately and said, "My lord, most of the soldiers in the army want to take back their homeland and wash away their humiliation, and General Yuan has set this as their lifelong goal. Don't you understand? As for Qi Ziyuan, you can tell from his actions to take back the Hanzhong Mansion that he is also a fierce general who is dedicated to taking back his homeland for the Holy Majesty. If the Holy Majesty is suspicious, wouldn't it chill the hearts of the soldiers on the front line?" Fan Siwen didn't wait for Prime Minister Qin to speak, and quickly kowtowed to change the topic. "Your Majesty, the troops of Xiu Yuan and General Yuan are still at the front line. Please ask the Holy Majesty to decide whether it is a war or a peace, otherwise, the soldiers will stay outside for a while. Every day, the danger increases." The people of the main combat faction immediately understood that before General Yuan and Qi Ziyuan's defense papers arrived, they must not allow people to bring up the topic of rebellion, and immediately ran out to ask the emperor to order Qi Ziyuan and General Yuan to continue to move forward and take back their homeland. As a result, the topic was brought back again. Qin Xiang's people tried to bring up the topic of holding the two of them accountable several times, but they were always taken away. The Holy Majesty originally had a straight back, but when he saw that everyone had quarreled for a long time and couldn't come up with a reason, he waved angrily and said, "Retire, we will discuss it tomorrow." Qin Xiang's face darkened suddenly, and the old man with white beard was overjoyed. The court retreated, but Qi Ziyuan and General Yuan would not stop. Even if they could only recover an inch of land a day, it would be worth it. The old man with white beard happily went out with the support of his son and grandson. His son and grandson kept thinking, "Father, don't come tomorrow, it's too mysterious today." Just now he watched his father take off his shoes and hit Prime Minister Qin vigorously, but except his father and those old scholars really didn't dare to hit Prime Minister Qin with their shoes. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 364. The white-bearded old man was one of the only 3 surviving elders of the great Zhou dynasty. Yan Cheng, 20 years ago, When Shengshang fled to the south, he cried a lot, but he had to bring his family and follow Shengshang to the south. When the court was in chaos, he supported the court together with several veteran officials. Qin Xiang, who now has the power over the world, was only a small sixth-rank official. When he saw him, he not only avoided and saluted him, but also respectfully called him Mr. Wang. When Qin Xiang was admitted to the Jinshi department, the old man with white beard was unfortunately the chief examiner, which made him regret all the time, saying that if he knew that Qin Xiang was such a treacherous villain, he would never let him pass. This also shows the bad relationship between him and Qin Xiang. He retired 7 or 8 years ago. Yesterday he heard the news that General Yuan and Qi Ziyuan had dispatched troops. He drank 2 glasses of wine for a while, and the next day he dug out his court clothes and went to court. Although he has retired, he still has the honorary title of Prince and Taifu on his head, so it is very easy to go to court. Regarding his son's behavior of preventing him from going to court, he just snorted twice to express his dissatisfaction, and expressed contempt for the fighting power of his son and grandson, relying on you. Then I might as well close my eyes and dream. Both his son Yan Du and his grandson Yan Fu were embarrassed, but the white-bearded old man stopped and looked at Qi Feng, who had withdrawn from the court. Sarcasm flashed in his eyes, and he turned to his son and said, looking at him, "You still dislike me? Are you brothers not good? You can be reincarnated here with me, it is the blessings you have cultivated in several lifetimes. If you don't hesitate, I will go down to see Lord Yan and ask him to reincarnate you into the belly of Qi Feng's wife next time." Yan Du couldn't laugh or cry, "Father, my son is older than Qi Feng." Yan Fu lowered his head, covering the smile on his lips. The white-bearded old man stared and said, "Go vote in your next life. If you don't believe me, just wait and see. I don't know how happy it is to be my son. You must make noise." Yan Du was somewhat embarrassed in front of his son, but thinking of Qi Feng's performance just now, he rarely felt that what his father said was right. It was really bad luck for Qi Ziyuan to have such a father. At this time, Fan Siwen was also looking at Qi Feng with a pale face. He resisted other people's strange eyes and walked to Qi Feng's side, and said in a low voice, "Let's go together." Qi Feng was also a little embarrassed because of what happened in the court just now, so he immediately followed after hearing this. He was also very aggrieved by other people's strange eyes. Just now, when someone raised the words of rebellion, he broke out in a cold sweat. There was only one sentence left in his mind. Naturally, he wanted to try his best to keep the Qi family. How could he think of anything else? Qi Feng complained a little bit about his son. If he didn't go to the army to lead the army, and he would take the imperial examination to become an official, where would there be such troubles? The rebellion is a matter of the whole family. Now Fan Siwen even has the thought of killing Qi Feng, just because the rebellion is implicated by the 9 clans. He has no choice but to jump out. Even if he is trying to admonish him to death, he must stop this charge for Qi Ziyuan, because he is also in the 9 clans. In the meantime, this crime was carried out, and no one in the Fan family could survive. That's why Fan Siwen Kifeng was so angry. He couldn't suppress his anger when he got into his carriage. "You are crazy. If you don't complain for Ziyuan at this time, what crime are you asking for? Do you think it's as simple as killing someone? Ziyuan's crime of rebellion has been confirmed, and none of you Qi family, our Fan family, Zhu family, and Xia family can escape." Qi Feng's face was also a little ugly, and he argued, "The Holy One is kind, if we take the initiative to confess." "What are you going to tell me?" Fan Siwen scolded. "Xiu Yuan is going to take back his homeland, just to take back his homeland. He is only 20 now, and he hasn't even married a wife. How big do you think he is? Your Majesty is kind, he is also the Emperor." "What is the Emperor?" Fan Siwen stared into his eyes tightly and said, "The Emperor is the Emperor. When the Emperor is angry, his corpse is floating for hundreds of miles." Qi Feng, don't do stupid things anymore, starting tomorrow, you will take sick leave bar. After speaking, he slammed the door of the car, jumped out of the car, and found out that it was his own carriage when he got down. He was really confused and got out of his own carriage. Qi Feng should be driven out. But thinking of Qi Feng's appearance, Fan Siwen stopped thinking, stood on the ground and took a few breaths, then waved helplessly and asked the coachman to take Qi Feng back to Qi's father, and he walked back with his hands behind his back. Fan Siwen walked home with a sullen face, only to realize that he had to go to work, and he skipped work and came back. As expected, everything went wrong today. Thinking about it, he didn't have the heart to go to the yamen anymore, so he just sent the servant away go to the yamen to ask for leave, and enter the mansion with a green face. When Xia Tong heard that Fan Siwen was back, she hurried out, stuffed a heater in his hand, and asked, "How's it going?" Seeing that his complexion was not good, he asked, "Did something happen to Ziyuan?" Fan Siwen went straight into the study and dismissed him. Seeing that he was silent, Xia Tong stomped his feet and said, "You are talking." Fan Siwen glared at him, "What can Ziyuan do?" "Don't worry, with Grand Tutor Yan and General Yuan standing in front of him, if he can't deal with Ziyuan, even if he is punished, it will be nothing more than deducting his annual salary category." "Then why is your face so ugly?" Fan Siwen was furious in his chest. "It wasn't a big deal, but your cousin-in-law took the initiative to plead guilty for Ziyuan, and it was nothing more than other crimes, but he dared to respond to the charge of rebellion. I really don't understand how he is a fourth-rank official. How did it come here?" Fan Siwen told Xia Tong about what happened in the hall today, and said, "You should write a letter to Zijin, and tell him about the things here. Then, do you want to call Zijin back? And Heiran, the two of them are still children, let's call them back to study," Xia Tong said with a worried face. Fan Siwen glared at her. "Can you be Zijin's master?" Fan Siwen snorted coldly, "If you can call someone back, then do so." Xia Tong said angrily, "It's not all because of your son that he ran away from home." "Blame me." Fan Siwen's anger that had just been suppressed rose again, and he shouted, "Inian's quota belongs to Laozi, and he is my son. Isn't Jialu my son? Jialu is 2 years older than him. What happened to me giving him favor? Don't you know the difference between a concubine and a concubine?" Xia Tong roared back, "Zijin is a concubine, and this quota of kindness belongs to him, so why should he give it to Jialu? Since he was born, how much has he given away? He passed the examination as a scholar at the age of 11. He can become an official by himself. What do you want this favor for? His elder brother can't study, and he has no talent in martial arts, so I gave him the grace. Don't you think you have to rely on your family for the rest of your life, Zijin?" It's not that Fan Siwen thought badly about his own son. Zijin had been sluggish since he was a child, and when he left, he couldn't be bothered to torment his brother-in-law. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 365. Xia Tong sneered and said, "This is just your excuse. When did you buy something without letting Jialu choose first and then Zijin's turn? It was Zijin's fancy item, but you asked him to give it to Jialu. Even though he is young and he is the son-in-law, yet he wants to give way to the family. Have you ever thought about him? These slaves in the family flatter him. He doesn't know how much he has been pissed off by those slaves since he was a child." Fan Siwen said impatiently, "You are the mistress of the house, how can he be angry? If you want to be angry, you must be angry. Don't think I don't know. It was his design that Jiai bullied Heiran several times when he was young. Otherwise, why would it be like this? Coincidentally, I ran into it right after I came back. Xiaotong only felt his breath stuck in his chest, and shouted, "Why didn't you say that when the family was bullying the two of them in private? If he didn't bully Zijin and Heiran in private, could Zijin design these things? If you could to make decisions for him, does he need to bother? You are his father. How old was he at that time? He was less than 5 years old. You are not ashamed, saying that Qi Feng is not worthy of being Xiaoyuan's father. How good are you? I think you can go and be brothers with Qi Feng. You are all bastards who love concubines and destroy wives." After speaking, he smashed the things in the study to him. Fan Siwen's face was livid, and he sat there sullenly, glaring at Xiaotong. People outside are already used to it. What to do, they will feel strange if the master and wife don't quarrel someday. Although Fan Siwen had a big fight with his wife, he still prepared to defend Qi Xiaoyuan tomorrow. If it was Qi Xiaoyuan's business alone, he might just do his best, but this is a matter of the 9 clans, and unfortunately he is one of them, so even if it's for his wife and children, he can only do his best to protect Qi Xiaoyuan, at least not let him implement the charge of rebellion. However, considering the emperor's reaction, the possibility of taking this charge is somewhat small, provided that Qi Feng is not holding back. Others were also preparing, and those who fought in the main battle put aside their past suspicions and united to ask the emperor to support General Yuan and Qi Xiaoyuan's military operations. The master and the other faction united to request the emperor to withdraw General Yuan and Qi Xiaoyuan, and start the negotiation mechanism with the Kingdom of Jin to minimize the loss as much as possible. As for the treatment of General Yuan and Qi Xiaoyuan, they were divided into 2 factions. They just didn't listen to orders and sent troops privately. They were eager for fame, but not enough to rebel. The other faction firmly believed that if the 2 wanted to rebel, they had to be. Everyone prepared their own words, but when everyone arrived at the Hall of Supreme Harmony the next day, the emperor actually said that he was sick, so he rested for 3 days. After 3 days of rest, when they negotiated a result, plus the time for the order to reach the north, everything was settled, and the face of the Lord and the faction was very ugly. The main battle faction laughed out loud. Although the Holy Majesty did not speak out to send troops, he acquiesced to the actions of General Yuan and Qi Xiaoyuan. Only Yan Cheng and a few important officials frowned and retreated anxiously. The emperor made a good plan. This is to settle the score after the fall. Yan Cheng sighed. Yan Du hesitated and said, "Father, do you want to remind General Yuan?" Yan Cheng shook his head. "Do you think that General Yuan has no way to know about such a big matter? Now I can only hope that they can hold on to the captured county. Can't help it, I'm afraid the world will be in turmoil again." Yan Du also raised his heart, worried. At this time, Qi Heiran didn't know that his father had dug his brother again, and then the emperor had dug a bigger hole behind him. He was sitting in Wu Jin's room, looking at him with disgust. "Wu Jin, it's just a cold, but you've been sick for such a long time, and you're still so heavy, isn't your physique too bad?" Wu Jin was very wronged. "I have never gone out in such a cold night since I was a child." Okay, I know your contribution." Qi Heiran waved his hand and said, "Now that I'm here, your father can feel at ease, you can recover from your illness at ease, your father won't punish you again." But the father donated so many things, he felt distressed, and he could toss his son vigorously when he felt distressed. Wu Jin stole a glance at Qi Heiran, but he didn't say anything. The room was full of the smell of medicine. Qi Heiran was impatient to sit for a long time, and thought that his purpose of condolences had been achieved, so he patted him on the shoulder and said, "Take good care of your illness, I will take you to play when you recover, guarantee for a month let you run barefoot in the ice and snow." Wu Jin's face turned paler, but Qi Heiran didn't notice it, and felt comforted, so he waved away. Looking at his back, Wu Jin heaved a sigh of relief, and then became entangled. not knowing whether he should get sick quickly or continue to be sick. Just as Chi Heiran walked out, Wu Shanke greeted him with a smile all over his face. "Fourth son, please trouble me to come and see the dog." Chi Heiran smiled and said, "Young Master Wu has made great contributions to the battle of defending the city, so I should come and see him." Where, this is what he should do," Wu Shanke asked with a deeper smile, lowering his voice. "Fourth young master, do you know when General Qi will come back?" "I don't know, I never inquire about the itinerary of the eldest brother, Mr. Wu, why are you asking this?" "No, it's nothing, just to be concerned. Isn't it almost New Year's Eve? I think even if there is a war, the soldiers should have a good year, right?" Chi Heiran fell silent, ignoring Wu Shanke's prying eyes, and said directly, "Your Excellency, you just have to take care of the government affairs, and you don't have to worry about things in the barracks." But after returning to the carriage, Chi Heiran became depressed. Mu Yangling asked curiously, "What's the matter with you? You just went in for a while, why are you so sleepy? Many soldiers died in this battle. Some of them live here, while others lie far away. In the past, even if they couldn't go home, they could still send some things back during the Chinese New Year." Mu Yangling was silent for a while, and said, "If there is a war, there will be casualties. This is inevitable. To end the war, unless you are willing to be slaves, or you know that you will continue to take back your homeland and build the entire country strong and rich, only in this way, war can be avoided." Chi Heiran was at a loss. "We are powerful and rich, we cannot be afraid of external forces, but the Holy One and the Imperial Court will not allow us to do these things. This is the Guo family's world." Mu Yangling also fell silent, and the car suddenly became dull. Fei Bai outside felt that the atmosphere was different, and his sense of existence was further reduced. When getting out of the car, Chi Heiran said, "Those are too far away, we'd better do what's in front of us. For example, give pensions to the families of the soldiers who died in battle, and distribute some supplies to the families of all the soldiers who went to war, even a caddy of rice and noodles." Mu Yangling stopped in his tracks and asked, "Do you know how many soldiers you have? This is a lot of money." Chi Heiran scratched his head and said, "Borrow from Zijin first? Then pay back with my dividends later." The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 366. Mu Yangling looked at Chi Heiran and asked, "Are you sure you can really afford it? Chi Heiran's money is always not enough." Chi Heiran waved his hand confidently, "I just don't need to spend the dividend money in the future, and I will definitely be able to pay it back." So Chi Heiran gave an order, and the logistics of the 5 battalions took the ledger and roster to Hanshong Mansion to find Fan Zijin. Fan Zijin almost spat out a mouthful of tender blood, but Chi Heiran's 1-year income from the restaurant would be gone, but he had already made a promise, and he couldn't make him go back on his word, so he could only squeeze out his own private room to make up for him. Fan Zijin planned to go back and must teach him a good lesson. At this time, Chi Heiran was happily riding a carriage with Mu Yangling back to Mingshui County for the new year. Mu Yangling looked at the people outside with smiles on their faces, and said, "I don't know if Big Brother Qi and the others can cease fighting for the new year today. Jinbing is not a new year, so even if the elder brother wants to cease fighting, he has to ask Jinbing to agree." The Jin soldiers didn't want to stop fighting, but they were unable to defend the city now, so they could only retreat. In addition to the cold weather, seeing that the Han soldiers did not fight today, they huddled in the camp and did not move. At this time, Qi Ziyuan was not in the camp, but in a restaurant in the town that had just been taken back. When General Yuan strode in with 2 entourages, he saw the young man sitting in front of the window at a glance. Appreciation flashed in his eyes, and he walked over with a smile. Qi Ziyuan saw him get up immediately. "Uncle Yuan." General Yuan laughed loudly, patted him on the shoulder and said, "Since you call me uncle, then I will recognize you as a nephew. Come on, everyone find a place to sit down." Seeing that there were not many people in the restaurant, but there were some ordinary people standing or sitting around, he smiled and looked at Chi Xiaoyuan. "You kid, you are very shrewd. You have only occupied this town for a few days, and yet you made such a thing. A restaurant is coming." Chi Xiaoyuan smiled slightly, and explained, "The price is low in a small place, and you can buy a shop for only 100 taels of silver. If my uncle comes over, I have to make some preparations." General Yuan didn't blame Chi Xiaoyuan, on the contrary, he felt that he was thoughtful. He raised his head and took a careful look at Chi Xiaoyuan. Chi Xiaoyuan was only 20 this year. Refined and elegant, standing with them, the big bosses in the army, is really a bit out of the crowd, but the rare ones are even more convincing. General Yuan patted him on the shoulder and said yes 3 times in a row. "It's true that the waves of the Yangtze River push forward the waves of the past. Although I have never seen you, I have been listening to your news. Your uncle told me back then that it is a material that can be made, but I didn't expect it to be so easy to make, and I was shocked when you took over Hanshong Mansion 2 years ago." Chi Xiaoyuan said modestly, "Although I tried my best, I only took back the Hanshong Mansion, but the general took back the Henan Mansion and Kaifeng Mansion as soon as he stepped out." General Yuan shook his head. "Jingzhou Mansion is easy to defend and difficult to attack. One mansion can reach 2 of our mansions. What's more, you only have 90,000 troops, but I have 200,000, how can you compare?" That's why General Yuan took the risk to meet Chi Xiaoyuan. He is a rare military talent. After fighting for so many years, he felt that it was getting more and more difficult to fight Jin Bing. He is too familiar, and because he is getting more and more anxious, he is already over 40 years old. How many years can he be on the battlefield? Although his son was brave and kind, his own son knew that they could only be forwards, not generals. He was afraid that if he died, Baiguan would not be able to bear it, but Chi Xiaoyuan's appearance undoubtedly gave him hope. That's why he came to see Chi Xiaoyuan regardless of his military advisor Shen Mu's stop. Otherwise, he had been in love with him for so many years, and he didn't see him this time, and he didn't know when the next time would be. Of course, this couldn't be the reason for them to meet, so they used the excuse of using troops against Jingguo later. After the two exchanged pleasantries, they quickly got to the point. General Yuan meant to take advantage of the victory to pursue, and it would be best to recover all the lost lands south of the Yellow River and drive the Jin soldiers to the north of the Yellow River. Hearing General Yuan's suggestion, Chi Xiaoyuan couldn't help but think of what his younger brother said to him the night before he left. Although it was difficult to take back Hanshong Mansion, they took it back. Although it was difficult and dangerous to take back Jingzhou Mansion, they also succeeded. Chi Xiaoyuan is indeed full of confidence now. Before that, he and Rong Xian had indeed the same plan as General Yuan, to take back as much lost land as possible. But the younger brother, who has always been impulsive and eager to take back his homeland, doesn't think so. Chi Heiran had discussed this matter with him before being sent back to Xingzhou Mansion. Chi Heiran's meaning was very simple. After opening up things, shrink the front line and defend Jingzhou Mansion, Henan Mansion, and Kaifeng Mansion. Chi Heiran said with a deep face on his round face, "Brother, it's not that General Yuan has never taken back the area north of the Yellow River. Even though there is an iron order from the Holy Majesty, he is eager for quick success. Take it back and keep it, only if you keep it is ours. If you take it back and lose it, then the blood of our soldiers will not be in vain." Chi Xiaoyuan has always known that his younger brother is very talented in marching and fighting, so he thinks seriously about his words. Chi Heiran took advantage of the victory and pursued, "Brother, we only have tens of thousands of troops, so it would be great if we can defend Jingzhou Mansion. Although General Yuan has 200,000 soldiers and horses, once this battle is over, no one knows how many people will be left. The boundary between Kaifeng Mansion and Jingzhou Mansion is long, and even 200,000 yuan may not be able to hold it. We might as well defend Jingzhou Mansion just like holding Hanzhong Mansion, and then slowly erode outward after recuperating. It is worse than heading north all at once. But because of insufficient reserves, you have to lose land again, isn't it better? Qi Ziyuan has been thinking about his younger brother's words for the past few days, and the pride that has been accumulated for many days has disappeared. Heiran only focused on the battle situation to look at this issue, but he also had to think about the political situation and Jingguo's response. If they continue to go north and squeeze the kingdom of Jin to the point where there is no place for them to survive, will they be furious and pour all their strength into rebellion? And if they can't defend the captured city, the imperial court will definitely abandon him and General Yuan in order to keep the existing territory south of the Yangtze River. General Yuan has 200,000 soldiers and horses. The court may have a lot of scruples, but he is only a third-rank general, but he can be kicked out at any time to take the blame, so Qi Ziyuan decided to listen to his brother's opinion. And he came here to dispel General Yuan's idea of continuing to go north. Qi Ziyuan raised his head, looked at General Yuan with piercing eyes, and said seriously, "General Yuan, I think we should not go north again, but shrink the battle line and defend the captured city." General Yuan was taken aback and asked, "What did you say?" The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 367. General Yuan was finally persuaded by Qi Ziyuan. He looked back, sighed to Shen Mu who was following him, "I'm afraid we are really old." Shen Mu smiled slightly, and said, "You are old, don't pull me in. I also persuaded you to shrink the front line. The old friend of decades has not stopped, but I am willing to listen to a brat's advice. My heart, the liver is all injured." General Yuan laughed, knowing that he was joking, so he lightly whipped his horse's ass with a horsewhip, and said with a smile, "Don't tell me, I'm willing to listen to opinions that are younger than mine." Shen Mu shook his head, but still said, "Qi Ziyuan is indeed a rare talent." General Yuan and Yuranjian said, "How is it? This trip is not bad, right?" Shen Mu smiled slightly, and asked, "Is he not married yet?" General Yuan smiled and nodded. Shen Mu said deeply, "Is there a princess of the right age under His Majesty's knee?" "Even if there isn't one, there are princesses and the like," General Yuan said indifferently. "If he can marry the princess or the princess, that would be good for him." Shen Mu didn't think so. If Qi Ziyuan married a princess or princess, he might not gain much trust from the Holy Majesty, but it would add a lot of constraints. But it was Qi Ziyuan's private matter. Although Shen Mu regretted it, he could not interfere. Now that the two giants have agreed to shrink the front line, they will naturally not take the initiative to provoke Jin Bing again. Therefore, since the truce on New Year's Eve, there has been no conflict between the two sides. On De Zhou's side, Qi Ziyuan and General Yuan were allocating troops to do a good job of defense, but Jingguo's side has been standing still. Not only General Yuan and Qi Ziyuan felt that something was wrong, but Qi Heiran, who was far away in Mingshui County, but could always get news from the front line, felt that something was wrong. He really wanted to get up and go to the front line to have a look, but he was ruthlessly suppressed by Mu Yangling. Although the wound did not hurt the internal organs, the wound was large and long. Now the wound has just scabbed and it is time to recover. How could she maybe let him go? Even Fan Zijin suppressed him with a straight face, saying, "Big cousin is not a fool, you can find out that something is wrong. Big cousin will only find out earlier. If you are worried, just write a letter and ask, why go in person?" Qi Heiran thought so too, turned around and went back to the house to write a letter. From the day of New Year's Eve, Qi Heiran lived with Mu Yangling in Mu's house. The Mu family has quite a lot of rooms, and it is more than enough to arrange Qi Heiran and Fei Bai. When Xu Wanyang heard that Qi Heiran was going to celebrate the New Year alone, her maternal instinct broke out, and she immediately left him behind, and because he was injured, she took care of him in various ways. And Fanzaijan came here on the first day of the Lunar New Year. When he was 30, he was busy all day and only remembered that he had done it himself for Chi Heiran's pension for the soldiers. He was not happy all of a sudden, and immediately handed over the account book and roster to the 5 military camps. The logistics here, and then find a few stewards of my own family. There is only so much money, so you can figure out what to do, and then return with a shake of your hands. It was only after I returned to Singzhou that I found out that Chi Heiran was not at home for the New Year, and went to Mu's house. Although it was embarrassing to go to someone else's house for the New Year, Fanzaijan did some mental training and moved in on the first day of the New Year. Xu Wanyang arranged a room for Fanzaijan next to Chi Heiran, and then asked Yanmo to share a room with Fei Bai. So this year of the Mu family, although there is one less Mu Shi, it is still very lively. Seeing that Chi Heiran had returned to the room, Fanzaijan turned to Mu Yangling and said, "Let's settle the accounts and give you the dividends for the first half year." Fanzaijan asked Yanmo to take 2 account books and hand them over to Mu Yangling. "Think about it." Mu Yangling handed it directly to Ziyuheng and Lu Lang, saying, "You guys do the math." Lu Lang was a little excited. He had only studied for more than a month. Although he had done accounting with the account book before, it was all calculated by Ziyuheng. This was the first time he had a task in his hands. Once you get out of the study, you can't get out. Ziyuheng was not as excited as Lu Lang. She calmly took the account book and went to the study room, prepared the brazier and refreshments, then sat down and counted slowly. Fanzaijan kept looking at them, then turned his head for a while and said, "You don't have many people you can use, but they are all people around you. You can entrust them directly without inspection, which is better than me." Speaking of this, Fanzaijan looked a little tired, but he was different, because the family businesses of the Fan family and the Chi family were not here, and he bought people on the spot, and then inspected their character, let them learn their skills, and arrange them after they have learned well. It would take too much effort and time, but he had no good solution for a while. Mu Yangling hesitated for a while, and suggested, "I don't think you need to choose one by one before teaching, and then choose again, just buy a group of smart people, and open a school for them to learn. You can leave the teacher. Arrange people into workshops and shops, and if they are needed, they will be raised step by step. If they are not used, they can be transferred or sold. Although it will cost more money, it will save energy and time. A lot of. Besides, they all started at the grassroots level and have suffered. They will only cherish and work harder for the important tasks you give them. You choose people to teach in this way, and then give them a steward or deputy steward. Things are too easy to come by. People don't appreciate it." Fanzaijan pondered for a while, then looked Mu Yangling up and down in surprise, and said, "You came up with this idea?" Mu Yangling glared at him, "Don't think that you are the only one who is smart. Sometimes you can just think of things as simple as possible. You smart people insist on acting suspiciously. Even the simplest things can be complicated by you. If you really want to, it's very simple to fear that spies will sneak in. Make good rules and regulations, what can be said, and what can't be revealed. When the time comes, you suspect someone, just transfer the person away. People's energy is limited. You have to do so much business, take care of the army's logistics, and guard against spies. Even the iron can collapse. Heiran knows that the body is the foundation. I think you and Brother Chi are even better than Heiran. Why not?" After finishing speaking, Mu Yangling left Fanzaijan and left. Fanzaijan lowered his head and thought about Mu Yangling's words. Ziyuheng calculated quickly, but Lu Lang slowed down a little at first, and then when he found the feeling, the abacus also crackled. Although the speed was not as fast as Ziyuheng, it was not much slower. So before dinner, the two handed over the ledger to Mu Yangling, and reported, The ledger is fine. Mu Yangling nodded, put the account book aside, and let Ziyuheng and Lu Lang do the accounting, which was actually an attitude. She didn't believe that Fan Zijin would lie to her at this time, and it was unnecessary. How about half a year's income? Ziyuheng said happily, cousin, I've done the math, you can get 6,758 taels of income for the first half year. This was the first half of the year when only the rabbit meat workshop was in business. Later, not only silk was added, but also cloth shop, etc., because they were all invested with Mu Yangling's dividends, so Mu Yangling still occupied 30%. This indicates that the further you get to the end, the more dividends will be paid. Thinking of this, Ziyuheng's eyes lit up. My cousin is right. This is indeed a profitable business. It seems that she has been blaming Mr. Fan for the past 3 years. Yes, I only saw him carrying rabbits away from home constantly, but didn't see the prospect. Lu Lang was also greatly shocked, because he didn't expect to have so much money. The sum of their family's money was not even a fraction of the money. Watching cousin Aling get complicated in an instant, and then became more determined, I have followed her. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 368. The first time Qi Ziyuan sent a letter to Qi Heiran by flying a pigeon, Qi Heiran was startled at first, thinking that something serious happened, so he hurriedly took out the note from the pigeon, and only after reading the first line, he couldn't help but burst out laughing, touched the wound. Fan Zijin and Mu Yangling were anxious to know the news from above, and stared at him. Qi Heiran looked around, pulled the two of them into the study, handed them the note, and said excitedly and in a low voice, the old emperor of the Jin kingdom is dead, and the third and fourth princes of the Jin kingdom ran back to fight for the throne with the seventh prince. All right, Qi Heiran's eyes sparkled, we will speed up our pace, and we will be able to defend the city that we have captured. When the kingdom of Jin settles down, we will slow down. Fan Zijin's eyes were full of splendor. If you take advantage of the domestic turmoil in Jin and continue to advance north. No, Qi Heiran said in a deep voice, warring in winter is inherently difficult, and it was a last resort before. If we continue to march now, the soldiers below will definitely resist, and we can't push the kingdom of Jin too hard. They warm water, they eat away at our land step by step like boiling frogs, and now we use the same method to take it back slowly, otherwise they will hurt them all at once, and even if there is civil strife, they will turn around and bite us, maybe even let them transfer the conflicts within the kingdom of Jin. Mu Yangling looked at Qi Heiran with admiration. She just felt that it was inappropriate to continue going north, but if she was asked to tell the reason, she could only say that it was her intuition. Because this opportunity is really rare, Qi Heiran's grasp of the battle situation is indeed very accurate. Fan Zijin was obviously convinced by Qi Heiran, and said, then you should write to your cousin. Qi Heiran said with a low laugh, although we can't go north, we can take advantage of the chaos to do something. In the past few decades, the life of the Han people under the Jin kingdom's occupation has not been very good. You said that if they revolted, they would. How about it? Fan Zijin smiled with squinted eyes, and praised, good idea. There are also those Han local tyrants and country gentry, they should be willing to pay some military pay and so on. Qi Heiran is for the poor, and Fan Zijin has been chasing him for money every day these days, and he will pay him back because he paid the pension and subsidies in advance. The resulting shortfall made Qi Heiran get rid of the problem of being extravagant. At least now, instead of throwing out a few taels of silver as a reward, he changed it to verbal incentives. This caused Fei Bai's extra income to plummet. He was afraid that those people would provoke an uprising, and those people would ask him for supplies, so he could only blame those gentry. Mu Yangling thought the idea was brilliant. When a country is ruined and its family is ruined, it's very difficult to get in from the outside, but it's much easier to get out from the inside. Chi Heiran smiled and said, "If you all think it is feasible, I will write to my elder brother and ask him to send a few sharp-tongued people to go north." Humph, thieves are rampant in the country of Jin, and those people who rob the common people are, it's better to rob Jinbing. When we give them some support outside, Jinbing will definitely have no time to take care of us. This is like opening the door to a new world. Mu Yangling immediately thought of the various TV series of the Warring States period that he had watched before, and immediately said, "You can also provoke the relationship between Jinguo and Zixia, and let them fight at the junction from time to time. 2 games, you can call those thieves, no, they are rebels, pretend to be Zixia people to fight Jinbing, or pretend to be Jinbing to fight Zixia, and you can also provoke the relationship between the tribes of Jin Kingdom, but this requires proficiency. The various languages of the Kingdom of Jin are good enough, and you can also send some counselors to the 3rd, 4th, and 7th princes of the Kingdom of Jin, if only they can keep fighting for the throne or rebelling." Mu Yangling sighed. Both Chi Heiran and Fan Zijin stared at her with wide eyes. Chi Heiran exclaimed, "Aling, you are really good at thinking." Fan Zijin's head was full of black lines. "How Ran, you won't really do what she says, will you?" "What's wrong? Let's not say that we don't have the talent," she said, "but how to send people to the Prince of Jin is a big problem." Chi Heiran said confidently, "There must be a way for the car to reach the mountain, and there will always be a way. Anyway, we have a direction now, don't we?" After all, regardless of Fan Zijin's objection, he insisted on writing to Qi Ziyuan, and perfected what Mu Yangling said. Fan Zijin saw that both of them were excited, so he didn't stop him. Anyway, his eldest cousin would judge it, and if it was unreliable, he would naturally not accept it. When Qi Ziyuan received Chi Heiran's letter, he first shook his head with a grin. Like Fan Zijin, he felt that his younger brother and Aling were messing around too much. Then he fell silent when he saw the last sentence, "You have to try it to know if it works." He thought for a while, called Rong Xian to discuss. At this time, General Yuan had just received the news of the death of the old emperor of the Kingdom of Jin, and his repressed thoughts rose again. If he went north at this time, he might be able to take the opportunity to take back more of his homeland. Shen Mu strongly persuaded him that, like Chi Heiran, he believed that the most important thing at this time was to defend the city, not to advance north. But General Yuan has been in the army for 26 years, and what he has been thinking about is to take back his homeland and expel the Tartars, so Shen Mu can't persuade him. Shen Mu looked at his friend with slightly white temples, and knew that he was in a hurry. How many 20 years can a person have? He is over 40 now, and his time on the battlefield is not long. Shen Mu can understand his eagerness, but he can't agree with his decision, so after thinking for a long time, he wrote a letter to Qi Ziyuan, asking him to persuade General Yuan. Since General Yuan said that he is the junior he admires the most, let the junior he admires the most persuade him. But at this time, the emperor also came to join in the fun. The emperor, who was far away in Linen Mansion, knew the news of the death of the old emperor of the Jin Kingdom earlier than they did. Yes, General Yuan's news is second-hand, but his is first-hand. Therefore, when he learned that the enemy who had suppressed him all his life had died, Emperor Duanzong laughed 3 times towards the sky with his hands on his hips, and then called several important officials into the palace. He wanted to recover the lost land on a large scale. Not only General Yuan and Qi the general continued to advance northward, and he had to transfer the troops from Xinyuan Mansion and Tongchuan Mansion there. At this moment, there were no supporters or opponents. Qin Xiang supported the emperor's idea, but Yan Cheng jumped out to oppose it. Since General Yuan and Qi Ziyuan had ceased fighting, they should shrink the front line and set up their defenses. Now it's the turn of Prime Minister Qin and the others to ridicule Yan Cheng for being cowardly and fearful, but Yan Cheng analyzed it with the emperor in a reasonable manner. My lord, the troops of the Tongchuan mansion cannot be moved, and the Xixia kingdom has been eyeing our great Zhou all the time. The troops of the Sichuan government are dispatched. If Xixia sends troops, wouldn't the door to the northwest of my great Zhou be wide open to them? General Yuan and General Qi are exhausted troops, and now it's the first month of the month. The soldiers are homesick, and I'm afraid they don't have the motivation to fight. Besides, it will be spring plowing soon. Your Majesty, spring plowing cannot be messed up. The Emperor hesitated for a moment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 369. The Emperor was still hesitating. General Yuan and Qi Ziyuan's pleading paper arrived. The Emperor just turned it over and threw it aside. He saw that it was written before. What he wanted to know was what General Yuan and Qi Ziyuan were thinking now. And the two of them lived up to his expectations. Within 2 days, the pigeons from both sides came, and General Yuan proposed to send troops, but Qi Ziyuan proposed to defend the city. The opinions of the two were not unified, and the Emperor could still see General Yuan's eagerness and Qi Ziyuan's caution from those two notes. The Emperor suddenly became in a good mood, and said with a smile, General Yuan and Qi Ziyuan sent troops together, but now it seems that they are not as harmonious as I thought. The Emperor knocked on the table and ordered, let them shrink the battle line, follow Qi Ziyuan's wishes and defend the captured city, and don't send troops to the kingdom of Jin again. As for their rewards and punishments, let's wait until the city is defended. The servant serving the Emperor was slightly surprised. He knew that the Emperor wanted to send troops before, but at this moment, he suddenly made up his mind and looked very happy. With the Emperor's character, shouldn't it be very sad? However, although the Emperor was gentle, he didn't dare to ask the questions in his heart, and just bowed and retreated. The Emperor was naturally in a good mood, and it was possible that General Yuan really wanted to take back his homeland when he went north, or maybe he wanted to expand his power, but no matter what, he didn't want to follow his wishes. 2 years ago, no, it should be said that it was 3 years ago, he had only 130,000 soldiers and horses, but once he sent troops to the kingdom of Jin, and once again suppressed the rebellion, the number increased to 210,000. How much more manpower will be added? The military power is not in his hands, how dare he let them grow bigger? When Shen Mu knew that General Yuan sent a letter to Fiji, who had gone to the Emperor to invite the Emperor, he could only stomp his feet and say, why are you so confused? We lost so many people before 200,000 troops, how could we recover when we were defending the city, continue to march north? What if the Emperor listens to you and lets a large-scale army march? Didn't you promise me to discuss it slowly? Soldiers guarding the city can confiscate on the spot. Shen Mu glared at General Yuan sadly, do you want the Emperor to chop you off? 200,000 troops is enough for him to taboo, yet you still want to recruit troops. General Yuan suddenly fell silent. Alas, Shen Mu sighed, forget it, the Emperor may not agree to send troops. He has always liked to contradict you for the past few years. Maybe he rejected it because you suggested it? General Yuan's face turned blue, is this worthy of your happiness? Shen Mu stiffened his neck and said, it's better than watching you die. After speaking, he threw his sleeves and walked away. While General Yuan and Qi Ziyuan were waiting for the order from the Holy Majesty, they had gradually completed the frontier defense. When the imperial edict arrived, Qi Ziyuan delegated the power to Zhang Ziyi and Mo Xiang, and brought a dozen guards back to Jingzhou Mansion. The gentry and rich men of Jingzhou Mansion lined up to welcome him in Hang Pass, which surprised Qi Ziyuan a little. He looked at the gorgeous carriage in front and raised his eyebrows slightly. Rong Xian took a step forward and said, that is the head of the Li family in Chang'an County. Qi Ziyuan raised his eyebrows slightly, Longzi Li family. Rong Xian nodded with a smile, although the Li family was beaten to pieces, they still have some background. They are a well-known family in Chang'an. Although the Jin soldiers persecuted them a lot after they entered the pass, they never hurt their lives. It's been well preserved. Chi Xiuyuan lost interest immediately, and he didn't feel the need to make friends with Jin people if he could live in harmony with them. It has been 20 years since the Jingzhou mansion left the Great Zhou dynasty. In the past 20 years, their hands with little power have become even shorter. But Chi Xiuyuan still dismounted with a peaceful face to meet them, and then refused the evening banquet. He has to get up early tomorrow, how can he have time to drink with them? Seeing Chi Xiuyuan leave, Li Jian also hugged everyone, turned around and got into the carriage to go home. The butler hesitated and said, "Master, what does General Qi mean? What's the point? Look down on those of us who are lingering under the hooves of the golden soldiers." Li Jianwei closed his eyes and said, "Can't you? I see that he has great sympathy for ordinary people." Li Jian twitched a mocking smile. "Naturally, I feel pity for ordinary people. They have no ability to resist. After suffering a lot, they have to surrender to the golden soldiers. Half of the country gentry and local tyrants are fine. They don't have much insight. But our Li family is the Longzi Li family that has been passed down for nearly 1,000 years. Even the Shu family, who was hanging on the tail of the family, risked their lives and escaped with the emperor, but we traded with Jingguo and survived safely. Us." Li Jian's eyes were full of sadness and pain. "Chi Xiuyuan is okay, although he doesn't like us in his heart, he never laughs at us, and other aristocratic families, I'm afraid." The butler's expression changed. Although Emperor Sejong had repeatedly suppressed the Han clan and used the Han clan since the beginning of the Great Zhou dynasty, the noble clan still had an advantage over the Han clan. Will there still be a Longzi Li family? Li Jian obviously thought of this too, but returning to the Great Zhou is much better than floating in the kingdom of Jin. There are a lot of school-age children in the family, and they can just get married. I heard that Chi Xiuyuan hasn't made any marriage arrangements either. The housekeeper immediately understood, and said, "I'll start inquiring when I get back." Li Jian was satisfied. Chi Xiuyuan didn't know that he had thought so much after just meeting the opponent. He just briefly met with the generals in the army and asked them to guard the pass. He went back to Xingzhou Mansion and planned to move the base camp to Jingzhou Mansion. He only planned to leave a battalion in Xingzhou Mansion to guard. After thinking about the candidates, he said with a smile to Rongxian, "I plan to recruit soldiers again, expand the 6th Battalion, and add manpower to the other 5 battalions." Rongxian smiled and said, "Have you found a suitable general? What do you think of Mu Shi?" Rongxian was slightly taken aback, but it was reasonable. He nodded and said, "He has been running with Heiran for 2 years, and he has also gone through many battles. In addition to this battle of defending the city, he served as the 6th Battalion. They won't have an opinion. The most important thing is that the 6th Battalion was built by Mu Shi, not by stealing people from the other 5 battalions, but Mu Shi's achievements are still a bit weak." Chi Xiuyuan obviously thought of this, and sighed, "Although the credit is a little less, it can be accumulated in the future. We are in urgent need of employing people now, so we can make an exception." Rongxian couldn't help laughing. "You just said that you are paving the way for Heiran, how can I still reprimand you?" Seeing Chi Xiuyuan blushing slightly, he sighed and said, "You are like this to Heiran's father-in-law, how can it be to your future father-in-law? Isn't it more filial?" Chi Xiuyuan kicked him out with his legs. Rongxian, who jumped out of the room, couldn't help laughing. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 370. When Mu Shi was promoted, the whole family was overly excited. Mu Yangling brought out a jar of peach blossom wine and celebrated by himself without Mu Shi. Mu Yangling ate several mouthfuls even of the twins with chopsticks. Shu Wanyang slapped her hand off, but in the end it was the twins who came up to drink for themselves. Mu Yangling said happily, "Mother, when Dad settles down there, Our whole family will move to Xingzhou Mansion. Xu Huanyang was stunned, and the aunts and the others looked at Mu Yangling in astonishment. Move to Xingzhou Mansion? Yes, but our home is here. Even Qi Heiran and Fan Zijin looked over, but Mu Yangling said, wherever we are, home is where we are. Mother, father is now a general, and he will guard Xingzhou Mansion from now on. It won't be like the previous year we can't come back a few times. We moved to Xingzhou Mansion. Dad can go home after finishing his work in the military camp every day. We stay in Hanshong Mansion. It only takes 2 hours to go home, which is very fast. Xu Huanyang couldn't help but be moved. Then what about our family? Lock the door and ask Chen Sanzu and Su Jian to watch over it. I'll just come back from time to time to take a look. I'll hire someone to cultivate the land at home. Mother, you can't plant much land if you stay here. My aunt is getting old. You should be happy too. The aunt said angrily, how old am I? I was able to plant all the land with you last year. Mu Yangling just smiled, and looked at Xu Huanyang eagerly. She knew that the key to moving was the mother. As long as the mother agreed, neither the father nor the aunt would have any objections. House. Qi Heiran immediately said, the house is not a problem, Aunt Chu, leave this to me. If the Mu family moved to Xingzhou Mansion, it would be more convenient for them to meet even if they moved to Jingzhou Mansion. If it wasn't for Xu Huanyang's rejection, he would have suggested that they live in the general's mansion. Anyway, the eldest brother must be moving to Jingzhou Mansion, so the general's mansion in Xingzhou Mansion will be vacant. When your father comes back, we will tell him, Xu Huanyang said. A smile bloomed on Mu Yangling's face. Mom, Dad must wish you could move, so that he can see you every day. When Xu Huanyang blushed, she couldn't help pinching her daughter. What nonsense are you talking about in front of your younger brothers and sisters? Qi Heiran winked at Mu Yangling happily, and said in a low voice, tomorrow we will go to Xingzhou Mansion together. You tell your father the good news, and buy the house by the way. Mu Yangling asked, do you know where there is a suitable house? I don't know, but Wu Jin must know. When we arrive in Xingzhou Mansion, I will go find him with you, and let him find you a good and cheap one. Mu Yangling smiled and said in a low voice, the most important thing is to have enough space, and then open a vegetable plot in the backyard for my aunt to grow. Fan Zijin couldn't help rolling her eyes when she heard that the backyard was not used to grow flowers, but to grow vegetables. Seeing that Qi Heiran was still excitedly proposing an idea, urging her to raise some rabbits for twins in the backyard, she couldn't help but sigh quietly. People just saw it right, and he couldn't help it. When I went to Xingzhou Mansion the next day, Mu Yangling deliberately brought Ziyuheng with her. Ziyuheng suppressed the price so badly, it would be the most appropriate to take her to buy a house. Mu Shi was so busy that his hair stood on end. Qi Ziyuan actually asked him to recruit all the recruits except for a few people who had followed him. Qi Ziyuan's reason is very good. There is Jingzhou Mansion in front of Xingzhou Mansion, so nothing will happen. Soldiers, he can train slowly. In a year, recruits can also be trained to become veterans. There are also many bandits and thieves now. Qi Ziyuan doesn't mind if he uses the bandits and thieves in the mountains to practice. But soldiers are so easy to recruit. Even if the budget given by the general is sufficient, it would be a headache for him to divide the soldiers into good and bad and then organize them into the battalion. He groped for himself. For the first time, I felt that it was much easier to charge forward than to train troops in the rear. When his daughter arrived at this time, Mu Shi's eyes lit up. He knew that his daughter had helped General Qi to train soldiers. Mu Shi hurried down from the school field, but saw Qi Heiran, who was smiling all over his face. This time Qi Heiran saw Mu Shi for the first time since he received Mu Yangling's gift, and everyone had tacitly agreed on their marriage. Mu Shi was also a little cautious. He took a few glances at Qi Heiran, but he didn't realize that this kid was really good looking. Mushi looked at Chihayran again with his father-in-law's eyes, and he felt relieved inexplicably, and he was satisfied. 2 points appeared on his face, and he asked his daughter gently, "Aling, why are you here?" Mu Yangling talked about the move, and said, "Father, if you have no objections, I'll take Ziyuheng to see the house, and get my mother and the others over before the spring plowing." A look of joy flashed in Mushi's eyes, and he asked, "Your mother agrees?" Mu Yangling smiled without saying a word. Mushi's mouth was almost grinning behind his ears, and he nodded and smiled repeatedly. Okay, you go and choose a house. It's best to choose a house not far from the general's mansion, it's close to our military camp, Dad can go home every day." Ziyuheng looked at her cousin who was smiling like a fool, and couldn't help but cover her eyes. Chihayran was about to say that he would follow the checks, but Mu Yangling pulled him a bit, and said in a low voice, "My father just took over to build the 6th Battalion, so there must be many things that he can't consider, so you stay and help him." At the beginning, the 5th Battalion was planned and built by Chihayran. He was familiar with many things and had more than 2 years of experience in leading the army. At this time, the confused Mushi needed his help. The most important thing is, what a good chance this is to increase Yu Zhang's favorability. Chihayran understood instantly, and immediately expressed his desire to stay and visit the 6th Battalion. Mushi naturally knew what his daughter and Chihayran meant, so he naturally left him behind, so Mu Yangling took Ziyuheng to see the house. Wu Jin is worthy of being a dandy. He doesn't know where there is a good house, but the dental shop must know, so he personally took Mu Yangling into a dental shop, and arrogantly said to the dental shop who caught up, "Go, get your shopkeeper, call me, can you afford to serve me, my lord?" Who doesn't know the prefect's young master? Yagong immediately stepped back respectfully, and hurried to call the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper thought that their dental shop had offended Wu Jin, so he trotted in immediately, and made amends as soon as he entered the door. Mu Yangling and Ziyuheng were a little embarrassed, but Wu Jin was very dissatisfied and said, "My lord has been here for so long, why did you come here? Go, show me all the houses in the general's mansion." The shopkeeper's expression froze, and he asked cautiously, "Master, do you want to buy a house?" Wu Jin glared at him, "Nonsense, what am I going to do if I don't buy a house?" Mu Yangling kicked him under the table, raised his head and smiled at the shopkeeper, "I want to buy a house, shopkeeper, just find the house that you want to sell, and we will look for it to see if it is suitable." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 371. Seeing that Wu Jin didn't show any dissatisfaction with Mu Yangling, the shopkeeper breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately warmly entertained Mu Yangling. At least Mu Yangling was much easier to talk to than Wu Jin. He went out himself to get the piece of information about the house for sale. As soon as the people left, there were only a few of them in the box. Mu Yangling turned to Wu Jin and said, "I know you are a dude, but you don't have to show it off all the time." Wu Jin snorted and said, "If I'm not aggressive, they can bully me. If you don't believe me, you can go to a dental shop and try it some other day, and see how they treat you. Don't say customer first, at least they should be polite to me, right?" Wu Jin laughed and said, "That's being polite on the face. You wear such a suit to the dentist and say you want to buy a house, even if you clearly say that you want to buy a house with more than 3 grades, they can find you some 1 or 2 grades. And if the location is poor, the price will be more than doubled. How do you know so well?" "Knows everything." Wu Jin waved his hand indifferently, "Aren't all the business people out there like this? I'm used to it." The shopkeeper took the brochure and came in, and said with a smile, "There are only 3 houses in the general's mansion, one with 5 entrances, one with 4 entrances, and one with 3 entrances. How big does the girl want to see? Wu Jin interrupted and asked, why are they selling the house? The 5th family is going south, and I'm afraid they won't come back. The 4th family is moving to Sinyuan Mansion. The 3rd family is in urgent need of money, so it's all in the near the general's mansion. The law and order is good, and it's also quiet. Wu Jin tore through the booklet, flipped through it, and threw it to Mu Yangling. Zai Yuheng leaned over to look at the layout of the 3 houses, and finally pointed at Sijin's and said in a low voice, cousin, this one is good, the place is big, it's not worse than Wu Jin's, and it's not far from the general's mansion. Let's have a look and see. In fact, she is quite satisfied with the 4-entry one, because it can be seen from the layout that although it only has 4 entrances, its area is almost the same as that of the 5-entry one. It is good. A group of several people went to see the house, from far to near. The first thing I looked at was the 3-entry house. It had a very ordinary layout, but it was well built, and the furniture inside was also very new. It is said that the main family has only moved in for less than 2 years. Because the family is in a hurry to spend money, it has to be sold. Go. Sijin's house is only 1 street away from the general's mansion, at least it takes a quarter of an hour to go back and forth, and it will arrive soon. But this house is at the back, and there is a small hill not far behind. There are a little few houses nearby, so it looks a bit remote. The shopkeeper said with a smile, don't look at the remoteness here. In a few years, someone will build a house here. It will definitely be lively. Mu Yangling was non-committal, pushed the door open and went in to have a look. The main house of Sijin is a square, the house has just been built, the picture is not far from the general's mansion, safe, but the battle a year ago frightened them, they decided to move to Sinyuan Mansion, their family is not a few relatives are there, so it's not rootless. So the house was empty, with nothing in it, and no soil was moved in the yard where flowers, plants, and trees should have been planted. But this house is cheap, the same as Sanjin's price, because Sanjin's decoration is complete and the furniture is also delivered. This 4-entry house obviously still has a lot of follow-up work to do. Wu Jin's house is diagonally opposite the general's mansion, magnificent and magnificent, even Wu Jin couldn't help nodding his head and said, this house is not bad. If you want to buy it, I suggest you buy this one. Although it is a bit expensive, as long as you clean it up, you can buy it live in. The house price in Xingzhou Mansion is not expensive at all. This 5-entry house only costs 480 taels. If it is in Linen Mansion, it cannot be bought without 3 or 4,000 taels, and it is only in a middle-of-the-road place. Mu Yangling also thinks it is not expensive, but she still doesn't like this Wu Jin building very much. Although it is very magnificent, it seems that it is not suitable for their family to live in. Not to mention the aunt and a few children, it is afraid that she will live in it. Also uncomfortable. Zai Yuheng obviously thought the same way, and said in a low voice, cousin, I think it's better to move around. Let my grandma and cousin clean up by themselves, and do it according to their own wishes, and find something for them to do. Mu Yangling asked the shopkeeper, can the 4-entry ones be cheaper? Hey, girl, 360 taels of silver is not too much. You can see that the price of the 3 purchases before is only this price. Although the 4 purchases are said to be only 4 purchases, but you look at the big place on the northwest side. It can be split out to make a school field, which is not much smaller than Wu Jin. Zai Yuheng said, Sijin's house hasn't been finished yet, not to mention the furnishings in the house, but just the yard, we have to reorganize it, which will cost a lot of money. Calculate the labor and materials. It's not much cheaper than Wu Jin's. Mu Yangling handed over the task of bargaining to Zai Yuheng. Maybe it was Wu Jin's face, or maybe Zai Yuheng bargained too hard, and finally lowered the price to 325 taels. Zai Yuheng's eyes sparkled. Mu Yangling looked at the shopkeeper with a bitter face and no regrets in his eyes. He knew that the other party was not losing money at this price, but he also knew that no matter how difficult it was to suppress, he agreed to the price. A group of people turned to go to the yamen to go through the formalities. With Wu Jin around, how dare the yamen make things difficult for them? They don't even want the customary wedding money, and just give it to Mu Yangling and the others. Wu Jin waited for the shopkeeper to leave, then shook his head and said, "Why did you buy the worst one? Not to mention that the house with 4 entrances is remote, and it hasn't been completed yet. It may take half a year for you to live in it. How can it be so long? Just move the furniture in." He frowned and said, "But my cousin, the Kong in their house hasn't been finished. The positions of the Kongs in the 3 yards are also not right." Wu Jin was taken aback for a moment when he heard the words, and then burst out laughing. "Why is the position of the Kong wrong? Don't you want to make a Kong in the middle? Ha 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 ha." Ziyuheng said angrily, "Whose family's Kong is in the middle? Whose family's Kong is not a little northwest of the room? But their family's Kong is directly east." Mu Yangling glared at Wu Jin and said, "That's enough, it's done. We won't ask you to be a matchmaker, and I'll treat you to dinner later to show my thanks." Wu Jin knew that Mu Yangling didn't want him to make fun of Ziyuheng, so he immediately said, "Okay, I'll go now, but Miss Mu, I have something to ask you." Wu Jin licked his face and smiled, Can't you say a few good words for me in front of the little general?" Mu Yangling looked at him in surprise and said, "You want to join the army?" Wu Jin shook his head like a rattle. "Then what do you call me to compliment you?" Wu Jin said with a bitter face, "The little general asked me to go out for a horse race these few days, and said that he would help me exercise a strong body, not only let me practice martial arts with the soldiers in the school grounds, but also threw me into the forest. It's freezing cold, my illness is just right, my father used to support me, this time he not only didn't object, he even handed me over to the little general. Miss Mu, you are merciful, help me intercede." Mu Yangling nodded and said with a smile, "No problem, I will definitely tell Chi Heiran later to let him be gentle when training you." Wu Jin, who was still smiling all over his face, suddenly collapsed. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 372. Northerners are used to sleeping on the Kong, because it is warm, even if the quilt is thinner, it will not be too cold to burn the Kong at night. But there are also people who think that the Kong is not good looking and want to sleep on the bed. Of course, those who can get up and are willing to go to the trouble are mostly rich people. Therefore, rich people build houses with large interior rooms, but the interior area is about 40 square meters. A large bed can be placed on the northwest side, and a screen is placed to separate it from the Kong on the east side. In this way, the owner can sleep on the bed if he wants to sleep on the bed, and sleep on the Kong if he wants to sleep on the Kong. It is all up to him to be happy. Under normal circumstances, people only sleep on the Kong during the coldest period. Most of the time, they sleep on the bed. They can sleep on the Kong when they are doing needlework or playing with children, because there is a window on the inside of the Kong, and the light is very bright. It is good. Mu Yangling explained the reason to Ziyuheng in a low voice. Ziyuheng blushed and stuck out her tongue and said, "Fortunately, I didn't use this to lower the price, otherwise I would be laughed at. In the future, if you don't understand anything, you can ask my mother, she will understand everything." Ziyuheng nodded in response. "Then where do we go to buy a bed?" "It's not urgent, it has to be made to order with the masters. Isn't our family always sleeping on the Kong? Let's sleep on the Kong first, and make the bed before summer. It's not the previous life. If you want to buy a bed, you can just go to the shopping mall to choose it. The bed here is to provide the wood by yourself, whether you buy it yourself or grow it yourself. Existing beds are also for sale, but they are rare and of poor quality. Mu Yangling brought the whole family to Xingzhou Mansion. The house had been fumigated before, so they could live in it directly. Seeing the size of the yard, the aunt was very satisfied and said, "I will grow vegetables in the yard later, maybe it can be done again, take some and sell them in the city." "Auntie, let's plant vegetables in the backyard. Use the open space in these small yards to plant fruit trees. When Bosi grows up, let him climb trees." "How can anyone teach my younger brother to climb trees?" The aunt gave Mu Yangling a look, and then went to look at the backyard, and saw that there was indeed a large area in the backyard, which was about 4 times the size of their previous vegetable field. Xu Wanyang plans to build a few wooden screens, frame all the things she embroidered before, and put one in each room. The whole family was busy, and they hadn't finished their meal when Mu Shi broke in. Bosi and Kijia still recognized their father, and when they saw him, they rushed over screaming wow. Mu Shi picked them up one by one, and stabbed them with his unshaven face, which made the 2 children excited call. Xu Wanyang ran out of the house, leaned against the door and looked at them with a smile. Mu Shi put down the child, stepped forward to hug his wife and carried him inside, and said with a smile, "I ordered someone to order food from Hunggulo, and it will be delivered in a while. Let's have a good meal tonight, it will be considered a housewarming." Mu Shi looked around the room, but he didn't see any big ones, so he asked, "Where are Aling and the others?" "They put things away in the back. There are a lot of things in the house. I asked her to clean them up. The sundries are placed in the utility room, and everyone's own ones are put away. The bookshelves and desks in the study are all old ones." Xu Wanyang paused, and said, "I knew we would move to Xingzhou Prefecture, so I wouldn't have built a new house in the village. It's different. This house is just our family's property. I can sell it or rent it out after I'm transferred, but Chingutan is our home, just like Linchin village, so we still need a good house there." "Okay," Mu Shi said in a low voice, "although we have moved out, we still have to go back and tidy up frequently, so as not to let the house get old." After hearing the words, Xu Wanyang thought about it, and knew that her husband wanted to have a root in his heart. Linchin village was gone, so it could only be Chingutan. Today is their family's first reunion dinner this year, so everyone sat around the dining table solemnly and happily. Mu Shi first toasted his aunt, then his wife, and then picked up his chopsticks and said, "New Year's Eve, didn't it scare you when you were here? Today is not only a housewarming wine, but also a surprise for everyone. Come on, let's all have a drink." Bosi and Kijia also grabbed a glass, but Xu Wanyang couldn't snatch it from them. Mu Shi smiled when he saw it, and said, "Let them drink it. It's just fruit wine, which is similar to white water. Your son and daughter are only in their early 3 years old." But Bosi and Kijia drank it all in one go, and then continued to make trouble without anything, but became more excited. "We don't know if it's because of the wine." After dinner, Mu Shi called Mu Yangling and Bo went to the study room. Maybe it was because his wife and children were by his side, and he could see them all the time, so he was very happy. The smile on his mouth disappeared overnight. Disappeared. "When I entered the study, I just told my daughter and son a few words, nothing more than to study hard." Mu Shi's eyes sparkled, and he said, "Bowen, Dad is now a general, and the imperial court's appointment will come down in March at the latest. Once the appointment is made, I will remove my family's citizenship and get it done before autumn, isn't it, sir? Said that your homework is very good, can you give it a try? Then you will try it next year, okay?" Bowen's eyes also burst into light, and he said excitedly, "Can I really end?" Mu Shi smiled and nodded. Bowen turned his head and looked at his sister with a smirk. Mu Yangling was also very happy, patted his head and said, "Then you and Mr. Lu have a good time reading, you don't have to worry about it at home. Well, get ready, I will send you to the nursery the day after tomorrow." Bowen didn't feel bitter now, and made a comment, I have to take all my books with me. Bring some necessary things first, and take the rest slowly. Anyway, you don't want to go home, and you have to go home for 2 days every 10 days. Otherwise, mother is worried, and be careful that your younger brothers and sisters will not recognize you. Bowen proudly said, Bosi and Kijia like me the most, and they will definitely recognize me. Mushi looked at them for a while, then turned to ask his daughter, you send Bowen to the nursery, what about Ziyuheng? Ziyuheng and cousin Lang were also sent there. Dad, I built several houses over there, and they can live there. Now we have not only a cattle farm, a nursery, but also dozens of acres of land in Hanshong Mansion. As for the land, these are taken care of by someone, the spring plowing is about to start, and the matter of renting cattle is also on the agenda. I don't plan to do it myself. Apart from handing it over to Ziyuheng and cousin Lang, I also plan to train Zhongwu Zhonglu, at least let them stand alone. Mushi nodded. He was very relieved about what his daughter was going to do. After thinking about it, he asked Bo when to go back to sleep first, and then he pulled his daughter and asked, how are you and the little general? Mu Yangling was puzzled, we're fine. Then why hasn't he come to see you these 2 days? Chi Heiran used to come here whenever he had time, but now he is still recovering from his injuries, so he shouldn't be busy, except for the first 2 days when he went to the barracks to give him advice. After a while, there was no one in the past 2 days. But Mu Yangling smiled and said, maybe he is busy with something. Dad, you don't have to be so worried about gains and losses, our marriage has not yet been settled, even if it is dirty, it doesn't matter. Mushi stared at his daughter, where are you going to find a man who is so tolerant of you? I think the little general is very good, don't make him angry all the time.